Welcome to Carlton's Math Corner. Today, we are going to study the slope-intercept form. At this time, please make sure that you have your math journal, vocab packet, as well as something to write with. Our target today is I can write equations of lines in slope-intercept form, given the slope, and y-intercept. Okay, so in a previous video, I know we were introduced to the slope-intercept form. And in that video, we talked about how that form looks very similar to what we had worked with in the past, where we worked with functions and we plugged in a number for x, and then we, perform some kind of rule with it, and then it spit out an answer for y. Well, very similar. Slope-intercept form is written as y equals some number times x plus some number. Sometimes it's not plus, though sometimes it could be minus. But when it is written in this form, it helps us because it shows us what the slope is of a line. It shows us how a line is moving. And so the number that's next to x is referred to as our slope. And remember, m is for movement. So it's showing us how much a line is rising over running. And in our last video, we learned that we can, put a 1 under anything, even if it's a whole number or an integer. And so I can put a 1 underneath this, and this is telling me that my line is rising 4 and it's running 1. And then this 5 is referred to as the y-intercept. And in our previous video, we learned that a y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. And so we're kind of putting our knowledge together of what we've already learned about slope and about our intercepts. And now we're putting them together for this form. And so today we're going to write these equation. And so first of all, notice here's a graph, and I want you to notice steps that were taken. Okay? So we were given M and we were given B. And then look what happens with that knowledge. What do you notice? Okay, well, I notice that down here, do you notice that the line crosses at -4? And I know that that is my y-intercept. And that was kind of like the starting point. Y-intercept, we use the variable b, and I like to think that the b stands for beginning. That's where our beginning, starts in order for us to plot a point. We start at -4. And then where did this come from? Where did this staircase come from? Exactly. If I underline that and then I put a number underneath, what number can go underneath? Remember? Exactly, a 1. If I put a 1 under here, this is -2/1, and I can actually see -2/1 just by looking at this staircase. I moved right 1, that's +1, and then I went down 2, -2. So this was my run, this was my rise, okay? And so if I continually do that, if I go over to the right 1, down 2, look at it lands on the line no matter what. I can even go in the other direction too. I can go, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Like I can go the other direction just so I can continue my line if I wanted to. But notice it's still got my constant rate of change. My y's are still changing the same way, and so are my x's. Okay, so what we're doing is we got to create the y-intercept form. We got to create an equation. And so it says use the information provided. We have the slope, we have the y-intercept, and now we just write it out. So we always start off with y equals, and I don't know why it keeps underlining, but hey, let's get rid of that. So we have y equals, and then what comes first? The negative 1/4 or the 4? Yep, negative 1/4, but I'm going to write it a little bit differently. I'm not going to put the 1 next to the x. And the reason for that is because a 1 is already assumed to be there. Like it's already, there's an assumption that a 1 is already next to a variable, even if you don't see it. Okay, so I don't have to write it. If you do write it, it is definitely not incorrect. Okay, but I'm just showing you how you would most likely see it, you know, in mathematics. Okay, so usually we leave the 1 out, but we definitely put the 4 there. So we're going to put the 4 underneath. So this shows my negative 1. There's a secret 1 there, and then 4. And now let's add the y-intercept. So it's a positive 4, so let's add that. And then this is what our equation looks like in slope-intercept form. Okay, so let's look at 3 other problems. So we have our slope is 3/2, our y-intercept is 2. So if I write that equation, that's what it would look like. Notice I did not change this improper fraction to a mixed number because slope, remember, is rise over run. It can stay as an improper fraction. Okay. Same thing is true with this one. We have negative 3/4 and 1.5. Now the y-intercept can be a decimal. It can be a mixed number. We just don't see the slope as a decimal or as a mixed number. We usually see it as a whole number or a fraction. Okay, and so when we write this one out, that's what that answer or what that equation would look like in slope-intercept form. And then the last one, our slope is 8, our y-intercept is -7, and here is that equation written out. What I would like you to do is try the following 3 questions for tomorrow. Please write them in slope-intercept form. Thank you so much for joining me at Carlton's Math Corner, and I look forward to meeting with you again.